Hello and welcome to the Merri-Cast, the show that puts you on the fast track to confidence in starting and growing your business. My guest this week is Suvianna Grecu. As the founder of the AI for Change Foundation, she leads a global movement dedicated to advancing ethical and responsible AI adoption. It's a kind of really modern entrepreneurial story. It may be a global movement, but it's actually one that she set up in her living room at home. The AI for Change Foundation is a not-for-profit organisation, and this is a really, really important part of Suvianna's own story. She grew frustrated with lots of hype, vested interests and misunderstandings around AI, and it's become her mission to use her non-profit platform to inspire leaders and to embrace AI solutions that don't just drive efficiency, but also uphold integrity and equity. So let's hear how she got here, what she's all about, and what the future holds. Here we go.
So basically, I started by studying law. I don't have a technical background, not 30 years of experience working in Google or anything like that. But I've always been fascinated about systems, like how the rules shape people, power, and possibilities. So, and also I've been always really, really entrepreneur. So that was natural, how I would say that these things came together. So I basically started my own company. I've been an entrepreneur for 8 years, but DevCraft I started a couple of years ago. I was contributing on that AI hype, just like everybody else, and try to make something out of it. So I was creating these custom-made AI chatbots, but then I realized that there's so much hype and also a lot of fear. And that's why I thought that there must be another way of using AI. Of course, it's not that we shouldn't use AI. It's the future, but it's matter how we use it. So that's why I started AI for Change Foundation this February, and yeah.
Yeah, and we're going to talk a lot about that during the course of this interview. But let's take a step back. I mean, you said that you'd always been entrepreneurial. I mean, did it run in the family? Did somebody say to you, Suvianna, you're a bit entrepreneurial? I mean, how did you realize that about yourself?
I think it started when I was a child. I always been really creative. I like to vision things and sort of things like build and see them before they even happened. So I think it started like early age. I don't have like necessary entrepreneurs in my family. It's actually the opposite. It's always been mostly courage to in my family to get a degree and get a stable job just for, security reasons, that is, your family always wishes you the best in that sense. Because entrepreneurship is tough and so on. But I think it's just my spirit, I guess.
Okay, so in a way, there's this spirit that is born in some of us or arrives in some of us. So is it fair to say that your entrepreneurial drive was the thing that sort of drew you eventually, as we'll talk about, into the world of AI rather than the other way around?
Yeah, I guess so. I think these are natural combinations, being entrepreneur naturally and also, seeing the world view. When I studied law, it's shaping, of course, my how I see the world. And of course, AI became really relevant and so on. So I guess those are just natural consequences in a sense. So yeah, I would say so that was like the driving force, the entrepreneur rather than technical background or passion for technical things, no.
Was there a tension then? So you studied law, you said. So was there a tension then between law, which is very ordered and serious and orderly, and entrepreneurialism, which is almost the opposite, really?
Yeah, I think that is the fascinating part of it because if you think about law, it's like rules, regulations, and so on. But, entrepreneur, you have that kind of freedom to basically do, what your creative ideas or so on, or build something big. So I think that is like, they are yin and yang. They are like, both side of me. It's like I like that kind of thing that I can, find some structure, but also, let that creativity flow.
Yeah, and it's a sort of unique combination of skills. If you get the both best out of both of them, then sort of happy days. I mean, you mentioned it earlier on about a DevCraft agency. Tell me a bit about that, how it emerged in your mind, and and then the gap between emerging in your mind for actually sort of doing something about it. I mean, and tell us what it's about and what inspired you to start that company.
Yeah, basically, I was testing multiple business ideas before that. None of them really took off. And when AI became more popular, I learned how to do these AI chatbots for educational companies. So that was like natural transition, if you would say. And yeah, that was the basic reason was, of course, generate some income in a sense. But I fast figured out that that is not, how I want to spend my, days consulting and building these kind of technical things. So that's why my mainly focus is on for AI for change right now.
Okay, so that was a couple of years ago. But I mean, just on the DevCraft thing to finish off on that, that it's has its mission evolved since you started? I mean, what sort of changes in technology or markets have sort of prompted sort of the shifts, if you like?
Yeah, it has evolved in that sense that I don't have that much time to put on DevCraft in a sense because AI for Change is growing quickly. We have a
Yeah.
quite big team of volunteers, which is taking a lot of my time. I do some consultation there and there, but mainly focus is on AI for Change right now.
Okay, let's start talking about that then. It's a non-profit organization, is that
Yeah,
correct? I mean,
yeah.
so I mean, I know you can feel the passion, for AI coming, the way you're sort of talking about it, but let's lay it out there on the table. Why AI? Well, I mean, why? I mean, it's obviously it's the subject of the moment and everybody's talking about it, but why to you personally? What is it that's driving your interest in it?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think my mainly force for this, why I founded AI for Change was frustration. I mentioned a little bit earlier that I saw a lot of hype. Everyone tried to, sell something, new AI tools coming, everywhere, every day. And also there was a lot of fear, how AI will destroy that and so on. So I felt like there was, we have to understand the potential of AI, of course, but also understand the risks. So what is something in the middle that we can find some practical ways how to use AI responsibly? So that was like the idea behind it.
Yeah. Okay. So, and have you got, in terms of practical ways, I mean, a lot of people are really struggling with this as a subject. I mean, what are they struggling with in your view the most?
Yeah, I have seen in across Europe that, most of the companies they have adopted quite many, AI tools and they're using them regularly. But I feel like there is also a lot of frustration among people that they don't really understand how AI works, how much they can rely on them, and what is not allowed, and so on. So I feel like when it comes to ethics, usually it's, when something goes wrong, I feel like this something should be more on the center of the conversation, like talking
Mm.
about ethics and because things can go really wrong with AI, and if we don't think about these things really clearly and make enough understanding about these issues. So I feel like we are on that stage that we have adopted some AI tools, but now it's like the vision is a bit unclear because everybody is, selling new AI tools and that. I feel like, it's supposed to be more structured.
Okay. So you emphasize the ethical dimension, to this, and in the foundations work, you emphasize sort of ethical, inclusive, and sustainable AI. Almost everybody would say that sounds like a really good thing,
Mm.
but what is it? What can you help people sort of put something concrete on that, something specific on that in terms of how technology sort of serves sort of humanity in this way, in this ethical, inclusive, sustainable way? I mean, I guess what people are struggling with is what does this look like in
Mm.
practice?
Yeah, and I think one of the way to put it like really clearly for, business leaders and so on, I like to frame it that trust is the most ultimate currency in AI. Because if people don't trust your product, your services, you could have the smartest AI model on the world, but if people don't trust it, it's worthless. So I'm thinking about ethics, that it's a bridge to building trust with your customers, with your employees, and with your stakeholders.
Mm.
So of course, when we are thinking about building trust, it comes with the thinking about biases, transparency, accountability, and also the human impact from day
Mm.
one.
Mm. So if you are, I can imagine in this situation, like we met at a conference where there, by and large, there were people who were fairly tech literate. I was probably the least tech literate person there, but I could see that there were a lot of people agreeing with each other about that. And that's great. Is there I mean, in terms of your work, are you mindful of the fact that you might be speaking to a bunch of people who already agree with you about those sorts of issues? Are you looking to help those people about doing AI better, if you like, or are you trying to reach out beyond the room? Because there's an awful lot of people who haven't got the first idea. I mean, I'm just wondering where your focus of your attention is.
Yeah, my focus is of course globally and try to educate people how to use AI more responsibly, of course. But of course it's important to understand that many people are on different levels of understanding how this system works and so on. So I usually try to adapt the conversation based on, their level and so on. It's difficult because this space is moving incredibly fast. And, we all have some sort of assumptions, education about it, but it's a matter of, who you talk with.
Yeah, yeah. And so tell me a little bit about the interest that you're sort of generating in this debate. For number one, it's a big debate, and how do you position yourself to be a voice that's heard in this debate? Obviously, we're doing this podcast interview now, and that's one way. But beyond that, how do you make sure that the what you're trying to say about this is distinct and different from the many, many voices around AI at the moment?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I try to think about it a lot because, of course, in this space, when everything is written by AI and people start to sound exactly the same, I try to think about what is like, what is my message, what I can, tell, more clearly and so on. But I'm trying to advocate that AI is being used around people to achieve human potential and not to neglect the ethics and of course these kind of transparency and sort of things. So yeah, I think, and I talk a lot about trust because I think
Yeah.
it's a big issue when it comes when this technology evolves,
Mm.
because if people don't trust it, what's the point, if
Yeah.
nobody buys it.
I mean, I said you were a non-profit organization. Is that helpful in terms of positioning? Because I mean, let's take a step back. Was that a conscious choice from day one of setting it up? And if so, why? Because you could have probably done very well if you'd sort of set up a consultancy aimed at sort of making money. I'm just interested in the thought process because running a non-profit organization could give you certain advantages and disadvantages in that respect.
Yeah, I agree completely. But for me, it was really important from day one that it's a nonprofit because I wanted to build a community. I wanted to build something global, something, like a real organization that is advocating for these kind of issues. I see something bigger for sure. If I would frame it differently, like as a company, I could make a lot of money off it. But it was really important for me that it's a nonprofit. And many of the people, told me like I could get investors if that would be a company, but I'm just trying to think about the long term of this organization, where it could take these topics and so on, like what kind of influence it could have. And of
Mm.
course, I think our volunteers are playing a huge part of it.
Mm.
I really appreciate that they take their, time from their own free time to, focus and work on it. So I think that is just important for me.
I mean, it's important to say that it's not just you because you've got these
Yes.
volunteers, and I see on your website there's a couple of sort of friendly faces there, and so on. I mean, tell me about how you recruit and interest people in this. Is it okay to call it a cause? I mean, would you call it a cause or a passion or
Yeah, passion. Yeah.
yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So is it easy to recruit people? Is it easier because it's non-profit to
Very.
attract people within? Yeah, tell me about
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, it's very easy. Actually, that was quite surprising for me that we grown so fast. So many people wanted to join. That was overwhelming for me, because I didn't know how to manage. Like that was like raised another, issues for me because I never was in that position that I have so many people to manage with. And I would also argue that being like having this organization with volunteers is much more difficult than with normal traditional employees because of course they have their they are devoting only a certain amount of time for this per week. So yeah, it was surprising for me that it's been a huge interest of volunteers joining and wanted to contribute.
Okay, I want to come back to that a bit because we're also going to talk about in terms of your entrepreneurial style as well as to how you run your business. So you're focusing much more now on AI for change. How do you manage personally though? First of all, how do you manage your time and energy and focus? I know you're saying you're focusing more on AI for change, but there are still two initiatives going. I mean, has the AI for change sort of swamped, just become the main sort of driver? I mean, but how do you generally, even within AI for change, think about, I'm going to spend this much time doing this, how am I going to spend that much amount of time? It's very difficult, to get the balance right.
It is. It's really difficult, and you actually said it exactly how it happened. I started this foundation from my living room. I made the website during the weekend, and then I started to contact people. And I thought this gonna be just a side project or something, my contribution to the world sort of thing. And I never expected that this would take my time from morning to evening. So it basically it was a natural outcome of this, and it's just sort of like took me over. And it's really difficult to balance this, and I'm still struggling how to put better boundaries, how to take care of myself, and so on. I think it's a learning process, when you're busy with everything, but I'm still learning about it.
Yeah. I mean, I know from personal experience that you have freedom when you set up something, and but it's also the freedom sometimes to work 18 hours a day or 7 days a week, and particularly if it's a passion. Do you have to sort of say to yourself, Suvianna, sorry, not at weekends, or I'm not working this evening, or so on, or do you just think, no, I'm just going to go with it?
Yeah, yeah. Basically, I have to parent myself. Otherwise, it wouldn't work because I'm just like, oh, I'm just gonna do this quickly and this quickly. I try to just like I don't work, on Saturdays or something like that. Sometimes it's, I slowly open my laptop and just answer for one email. I should have better boundaries of that, but this is like I'm just thinking that I have to do this now so it will get easier in the future kind of mindset.
Yeah. Okay. Let's get back to the team element and actually managing and motivating people who don't have to be there. They could be doing other things with their time. I mean, I think that's a much harder discipline in a way than the if they were like paid employees of a profitable business and so on. There would be, oh well, yeah, I'll stay here for a while because the pay's good or something, even if they weren't engaged. I mean, how do you keep people engaged? Because even in organizations which are very passionate about what they do, you can have a bit of sort of passion fatigue after a while of doing that. I mean, how do you do that as a manager and as a leader? How do you keep them going?
Yeah, it's a great question. Honestly, I don't know exact why. I think it's the driving force that we are trying to aim something good for this world that is like big contribution kind of mindset. But also, I think it's a matter of finding right people who really care, who really want to put their time on this and so on. And of course, like appreciating them, thanking them, and, get them involved because I have a tendency, like I've been an entrepreneur for past 8 years. So I've been working solo. So for me, it was really, really hard to basically give this task, this project, these responsibilities to other people because I used to manage everything by myself and sort of this kind of thing. So that was like really hard. But then I understood that once you give people responsibilities, they really want to succeed. They want to, show, look what I did and so on. So I think that is also, it's a balance. Like, of course, you cannot, you have to understand that you cannot give them too many tasks, too many projects, because that is overwhelming. That is a struggle with their own other things in life. But I try to keep it in balance that we have really open communication. And if somebody needs help, they can just message me anytime and so on.
Okay. And part of the way you keep people engaged and passionate is through the growth and the feeling that they're making a difference. I mean, it's clear, that the AI for Change Foundation is growing, but just tell me a bit about the ways in which it is growing. And since you started it, what is it that you're doing now with it that you probably wouldn't have dreamed that you'd be doing, with it at this stage? Just tell me about that. So it's for the listeners' benefit, just understand how it's grown.
Yeah, so basically, when I started this foundation February, I set a goal that I want to organize an event. So it was basically idea to make an event about responsible ethical AI. And I didn't understand how to actually organize event this, extent. I just set up a goal that would be great. And now we're actually partnering with IBM and
Wow.
I
Right.
have a summit in November, which is like about this topic.
When is it? At the end of November?
Yeah, 20 November, yeah.
Right. Okay. So what's the event going to cover? I mean, it's, as I said, big subject AI. So
Yeah, basically we have people from European Union Commission, we have thought leaders, we have, IBM is contributing and so on. So it's gonna be an event where we talk about how we can use AI in the way that it's human-centric, ethical, and find practical ways. So I'm really looking forward.
now, if we imagine a time this time next year, say, I mean, it's difficult with AI because I mean, it's probably changed during the time we've been having this conversation. I mean, it changes that quickly. But in a year's time, how will you expect that AI for change, will have changed a bit further? Because it's probably going to there might be other organizations springing up saying sort of similar things. So how are you going to sort of position yourself to carry on, to be future proof, if you like?
Yeah. We've been thinking about this a lot, how we can differentiate from other organizations, what we can do better, what value we can bring to the people. So we are actually launching membership in the beginning of 2026. That is a big thing, how we can actually make some practical tools, webinars, and throughout education to, guide people how to use AI more responsibly. So that is a one thing, and of course, making a better and bigger summit next year. So that is something we have to focus on, and of course, growing the organization, being a more like structured, better boundaries for me, and so on.
Okay, so it will grow as an organization and the subject will change as well. So it's quite an exciting environment to be in. I mean, is that your natural, in terms of you see a sort of territory ahead that is unpredictable, but is sounds like it's bound to grow. I mean, is that all excitement in your head at the moment, or is there sort of oh, how am I going to deal with this? I'm just interested in your own sort of mindset around it.
Yeah, I'm always like excited about future, what might be and so on. But now running this organization made me more realized how, I have to be also realistic and so on. Of course, it's important to have big goals and so on. But sometimes we overestimate what we can achieve in one year. But yeah, I have big goals and like clear vision, but it's a matter how we get there, of course.
Okay, so this next bit is around, many of our listeners will be maybe be thinking about starting up either a profitable or non-profit organization, and they haven't quite made that step, perhaps because they're not thinking, well, maybe they don't see themselves as an entrepreneur. And we both know that there are many different types of personalities, but we're not all the same sort of personality. I mean, in terms of lessons that you would pass on, you jumped through the hoop of fire and you did it. And, I mean, what would you say to somebody who is launching their first venture, or maybe even you got something to say around setting up a second venture that went alongside the first one, and so on, like when you're running more than one business. But if there are people who are hesitating, are there particular things you would say to encourage them to do so, or to think through whether that is the right thing for you? What would you, looking back on it now, what would you say?
Yeah, I started when I felt like I wasn't ready. I was always waiting for another degree that I speak English better. I would have that and that. But this started I started before I felt like I was ready. So I think that is a one thing to actually try and see where it goes. But of course, if you are, launching a, second project, I think it's really important to think about what you're actually trying to achieve, because it's
Mm,
really easy and trendy to jump on this, all these projects and think about what it might be. But I think it's really important to understand what are your values, what you're actually trying to achieve, and pause there for a moment, because in this world it's so full of noise, and I think it's important to be true to your own principles and values. If that would take a little bit more time to find a clear, vision, let it
mm.
be. But I just think that is, when you are aligned with your mission, it's so much easier to do when you feel like, you don't want to, or you're tired and so on.
Well, Suvianna's making big waves, partnering with the likes of IBM at international events that she's created herself from scratch. And although we didn't talk about it on the recording, we did afterwards discuss the challenges of female voices being heard in what is still a male-dominated world of technology. But thanks to her cause and her passion, Suvianna's voice, I'm very happy to report, is being heard loud and clear. I love that bit in the interview where Suvianna admits that she really should be better at boundaries. When you're passionate about something, as she clearly is, then she freely admits that she's still trying to work out that side of things. And this can't be easy to do in the relentless world of AI, a world in which every time you think you have an answer, the question changes. Sometimes you just have to get used to feeling comfortable, I guess, with these sorts of discomforts. And one of the lessons here is that Suvianna seems comfortable to start things when she isn't entirely ready. If you can understand what you're trying to achieve in a world full of noise, then not being completely ready shouldn't really hold you back. So I felt inspired by talking to Suvianna, and I hope you did too. Thank you to all of you. We're getting some great feedback on the show. If you enjoyed this episode, we'd love for you to subscribe, rate and review through your usual podcast provider. And if you want to find out more about the Merri-Cast, look for me, Trevor Meriden, or our business Merriborn on merriborn.co.uk. That's it for this episode. And until next time, thanks for listening.